Welcome, everybody. Here we are. So, I didn't want to put out any more individual posts about match participation from 2025. But what I want to do is actually look at the entire year compared to all the other years starting in 2018. Look, we know carry optics is dominant. Limited optics is the new rising star of USPSA. But how is that affecting everybody else? So that's what I want to cover tonight. So as you can see right here on the screen, we're just talking major match participation, not locals. So let's start in 2018. In 2018, limited optics was the king of the hill. You can see right here, 26.26%. Okay. Open at 22.49. So not quite, but about 4 percentage points below them. Then right behind them was production. So production was right up there on par with open, and limited was, again, that was the big boy on the block back in 2018. If you weren't shooting limited, you weren't anybody. Then you have PCC, which they were very new back then, as was carry optics, coming in at 10.04. Single stack at 5.94. So going back all the way to 2018, we know that single stack, limited 10 revolver, not big players in the USPSA scene. Did they have competitors? Sure, just like they do today. But if you look at the numbers right down here, 1.37, 1.33%, 5.94, that's not much that I would call participation. All right, so let's look at 2019. Okay, limited has slipped a little bit. Now they're at 23.63, down from 26%. So they lost about 3 percentage points in there. Okay. That's a pretty significant amount. If you look at it, 326 lost about 11, roughly 11, maybe 12% in there somewhere. I'm guessing just right off the top of my head. Open holding about steady. They lost about 1 percentage point, but not much. Production 17.49. Now they slipped because they were right behind. They were about where open is now. I think they were like 21.46, somewhere right around 21 and a half. So they lost about 4 percentage points, almost 25% of their entire competitor build. Carry optics now gained 65% on top of what they were. So now they're up to 16.56. So if you round them, production and CO are both at 17. Now we're not rounding them because there's about a percentage point difference here. Then you have PCC at 12.78. So even they grew over 2018. Single stack didn't change much. Limited 10 didn't change much. Revolver didn't change much. But anytime you're in the white, you know it's not good. That brings us to 2020. Now carry optics is the king of the hill. Open is second, which they've been second the whole time. They just have a new leader that they're chasing, which is in this case carry optics, but it's a little less than a point and a half. Limited has dropped from first to third, and they've lost about 20% of their competitors. Not quite, but pretty darn close. Production is now down to 16.56. So they are slowly but surely just sliding down the hill. PCC holding steady. Remember the year before they were 12.78. Single stack is now down to 4. They're starting to fall off the chart here. Revolver's holding steady about where they've been, just a hair over 1. And now limited 10 has dropped almost half of their participation. Remember, they went from 1.33 to now they're at 0.76. Pretty close. So they are really starting to slide, which then brings us to 2021. Now you've got Carry Optics in just 3 years or 4 seasons removed from 2018 now. You're talking they've tripled what their initial competitorship was in 2018. Open still holding steady about the same, not changing much at all. Limited didn't change much in this year. They held pretty steady. PCC held steady in the 12s. Production is now down to 12% from their high of like 21 and a half. So they've lost 9%. They're like 60% of where they were. So not good for them. Single stack was at like 4 flat the year prior. They're at 406, so they're holding steady. Revolver still holding steady, hanging on to that 1%, just by the hair on there, whatever you want to call it. Limited 10 drops all the way down to 0.49%. They're at 33% of where they were just a couple years earlier. And now if you round them, they're at 0. Mathematically, they're at 0 if you round it. So here in 2021, limited 10 is, they are that swimmer that's out beyond the surf and they don't know how to swim. And you just see them constantly. You see that hand pop up occasionally ahead and then it goes back under. That's a limited 10. That's where they're at in 2021. Which brings us to 2022. Carry Optics picks up another 6 percentage points. Open, they actually gained a little bit, maybe gained 1%. So they're holding steady, not doing too shabby. Limited, slipping a little bit more down to 14. Actually, they may have, let's go back for a second. Yeah, they dropped considerably. They dropped 4%. They dropped like 25 more percent the next year. So not good for them. PCC, this is actually since 2018, 2020 and 2022 are statistical ties, 0.01% difference in participation. Those were their 2 best years, 12.78 in 2020 and 12.79 in 2022. Again, remember now, this is just major match participation. So single stack has now dropped from 4 down to 3.38. So they're dropping pretty significantly. Revolver still hanging on to the edge of the cliff there, that 1%. Limited 10, someone gave them a shot of epinephrine, a shot of adrenaline here. They actually picked up a little bit and they're at 0.76. So now if you round them, we can actually give them a full percentage point. But they're gasping for air. So somebody threw them that life preserver, that lifesaver out in the ocean to help them get above the surface of the water. 2023 is a banger for Carry Optics at 41.87% of all major match participation. So that means 4 of every 10 competitors on a stage is shooting Carry Optics. Open, dipped a hair, not much. You know, they're gaining 1%, losing 1%, gaining 1%, losing 1%. So they're the wave on the ocean, but it's a very slight wave and it's not much. And so they're just kind of holding steady. If you look at each year and the way it's been going, they probably hold steady at about 22% and they'll dip to 21.5. They'll go up to 22.5, but they're hanging right around 22%. Limited is all the way down to 11.5%. They are now, since 2018, in 5 years, lost more than 50% of their competitors. PCC dipped a little bit here. Remember, the year before, they were at 12.79, which was statistically their best year ever. And now they've lost 2 percentage points. So 1.6, so about 17%. Don't know what happened there in 2023, but it is what it is. Maybe it was Rifle World Shoot, PCC World Shoot. I don't know, but something happened and people weren't shooting as much PCC at major matches. Production, now we're down below 6%. We're at 592, just steadily sliding down the abyss. Single stack below 3 now. They were 368, I think, the year prior. Now they're at 259. I guess all the old people are dying off. They don't have anybody to shoot the division anymore. Revolver, still fingernails on the cliff, hanging on with dear life at 1.07. Limited 10, they slipped a little bit further below the top of the water there. They're back down to 0.65. So they're not as low as 0.49, which they were 2 years prior to this, but not looking good here. 2024, the year of limited optics. And it was only about 7 months that limited optics was authorized for points purposes, for participation purposes in competition. So May 1st of 2024, it got added. And now you see this is what we've got. Carry optics took a bigger hit that year. It dropped about 7 percentage points. So about 16, 17% is where they were. Limited optics. So they're at 30, basically 35, 34.88, 35%. You have limited optics on the board in just 7 months at 23%. Now, this is where I think Carry Optics kind of greased the skid for them, because with Carry Optics already being there and already being as popular as it is, popular as it was, popular as it is, that kind of helped limited optics. It allowed people that have been clamoring for a couple of years to be able to pull out their 2011s. Well, holy cow, now's your chance. And if you have a Carry Optics, a steel Carry Optics gun, you could throw a thumb rest on there. You can put a magwell on your gun. Now you can do a few other things and make your gun a little bit more high speed looking and compete in limited optics. So you didn't have to go buy a new gun, but you could add those things onto your gun that maybe you had in a drawer. Like, I know my rival, my poly rival, my steel rival S from Canic, they both come with magwells, but you can't put them on if you're shooting Carry Optics, but I can if I'm shooting limited optics. So, just things people can play with. So immediately it is right out of the chute. Number 2 pushes open down to number 3 for the first time since I started looking at statistics in 2018. Now, I picked 2018 because that's when I came in. You can go back reliably to about 2015 and practice score. Beyond that, it's hit or miss. So I just went with 2018. It would be interesting to go back to 2015, but I'm not doing that. Feel free to do it yourself. This was a lot of work as it is. So PCC now, so open before I get past it, it's about 17%. So it lost about 4 percentage points there, which is about 20% of what they had, roughly. I'm rounding here, so we're not going to be exact. PCC actually came up. Remember the year prior, they were at 10.8 something, I think. So they gained like 1.7, roughly 1.8. We'll call it 1 3/4 percentage points there. So good on them. Limited now down to 6.09. Production at 4.29%. Not looking good. Single stack down to 2%. Revolver, oh no, they're now slipping off the edge of the cliff. They're at 0.85. Limited 10 has hit rock bottom. They have barely, they're like sucking air through a straw and they're underwater at 0.33%. Not looking good. So this is when I started ringing the bell like, look, limited 10 is dead. There's no freaking need for the division. Get rid of it. And really, there still is no need. I know they added, now you can use optics. We'll see how that really played out here in a minute. I don't think it freaking matters. So, but that's just my opinion. But my point here is that it's not needed. Even if you are in a state where you're technically limited to 10 rounds, okay. Everybody you're shooting against is also in that division, is also limited to 10 rounds. So whether it be carry optics, limited optics, whatever the case, you're limited to 10 rounds because of that state law, that unconstitutional state law. So it's equal across the board. It doesn't matter. So it is what it is. But at 0.33%, come on. Really? Let's be real now. All right. So what does 2025 bring? That's the question, because now you have an entire year to compare carry optics and limited optics. And what's going to happen to carry optics? Well, let's check. Well, nothing. Even though limited optics blew up and got another 5.5 percentage points over what they had, carry optics went up too. So they went up about a point and a half. So carry optics did not lose any participation over 2024. Now they're not where they're at 2023, and I don't think they ever will be. I think what we're looking at is what I saw consistently over the year was about 65% of all major match participation was a combination carry optics, limited optics. So that is 65% of all of your competitors. So 6.5 out of every 10 competitors, that's what they were shooting, one or the other. Open dipped all the way down to 15.63. So they have significantly lost. They've lost at least 33% of their competitors over those 7 years. PCC had has had their worst year on record since 2018, when their numbers are probably higher. Like they probably had more people competing, but when you look at the overall number and the ratio, they had their lowest ratio of shooters since we've been keeping track in 2018. They're at 9.99%. So 10. They're at 10%. But that's a round up 10. So limited, worst year yet, 3.68. Production down to 2.95. Single stack at 1.83. Revolver at 0.72. So they're now off. They're no longer hanging on to the cliff. They're in the water, but they're bobbing. For the moment, they're bobbing. Limited 10, still underwater, still getting air through a straw, even though the board of directors voted to allow optics in limited 10. And people were on the interwebs saying, "Oh, I'm gonna shoot limited 10 at nationals and get a national championship, because I can put a dot on it." Didn't help. Didn't help at all. So, and you'll see in a minute, this actually excludes nationals, because it doesn't, all of these major matches included every division. And I think that's the only fair way to look at these numbers is, okay, when a competitor signs up for a match, what are his options? If he has, or her, what are her options? If they have all 9 options, okay, then that's a fair comparison, because only 0.37% of the people shooting these matches are actually selecting limited 10. And there's a lot of matches where it's 0, obviously. So it's pretty sad. So now, if you look at this with PCC as your demarcation line, everything above it is in the black. Everything below that is in the white, meaning It's low. There isn't enough room in that graph, that bar graph, for me to put the number without it filling up the whole space or blowing outside of the space. So you can see limited production, single stack, revolver, limited 10, all sucking hind tit here. Not doing well at all. Absolutely on life support. What's the one thing they all have in common? You guessed it, iron sights. The four that are still in the decent percentages all have optics. Now, let's look at factory gun nationals. Factory gun nationals was carry optics, production, single stack, and revolver. 77% was carry optics. Over 400 competitors signed up to shoot carry optics. You only had 9.96% shooting production. I think the number was 54 or 55. Might have been 55. But or no, it's 54. So you had 54 out of like 552. Single stack, 7.25%. Revolver, 4.17. So, and remember, those were your only four options when you went to factory gun nationals. That was it. So nearly 4 out of 5 were shooting carry optics. Basically, nobody wanted to shoot the other stuff. They did. Mason won a production national championship there, and he had competition. Nils was there. There were other people too. So it wasn't like there weren't good shooters. There are very good shooters in all of these divisions. Production, single stack, revolver, there are still very good shooters in those divisions. There just aren't a lot of them. I mean, revolver, you have your four guys who went to the world shoot, and your fifth. That's pretty much it for the top guys in revolver. Single stack has a little bit more competition. Production obviously has more competition than that, but they don't even come close to carry optics. There is a top shooter I was talking to that he's like, yeah, I'm probably going to be doing some carry optics because I want to shoot where the competition is, and it's not in iron sights. So let's look at race gun nationals. Race gun nationals, you had 5 options here: limited optics, open, PCC, which isn't a pistol, but it's okay. Limited and limited 10. Limited optics was nearly 46%. So that's what we're going to call it. Open was 31%. PCC was 17. So 46, 77, 95. 95%, roughly 94 and a half, 94 and 3/4, whatever it is, are your 3 optics divisions. Your 2, well, actually, limited 10, you can shoot optics and still nobody cared. Nobody cared. I think there were 17 people that registered for limited 10. So again, not much. Not much at all. 17 out of, it was like 626 competitors. When you click on, when you go to the match breakdown, there's another button you can click on. The word here is actually a button, and it's a breakdown, the match breakdown plus the people who registered or did something online. It included online registrations, whatever it was. So I always use that. There were 626 registered shooters, to shoot the match, which is a lot. That's a huge match. Definitely the biggest nationals that I've seen since I've been in the organization since 2018. So that's a freaking lot. And then even then, only 17. So there were 609 other competitors. So not a lot. Limited 10 is dead. Stick a fork in it. Throw it overboard. Let it sink to the bottom. Let it be shark bait. I don't care. It's dead. We don't need that division at all. Not at all. I feel like people are wasting their time. You're wasting your time putting the scores into practice score, even though it comes right off the tablet. You don't even have to do it. So that's just my thought on limited 10. Just go back to 8. I know people are like combine CO and LO. I don't know. I don't know if you want to. I don't know if you should. And I just say that because if you're going to do a factory gun nationals, all right, then you have carry optics. If you're going to do a race gun nationals, you've got a limited optics. So those people can shoot whichever one they want. So the real question is, are iron sights dead? I mean, you saw the numbers. They're not getting better. They're literally getting worse. There is not a single year where iron sight divisions picked up shooters. Not a one. And what are we seeing every year? More dots, more variations of dots, cheaper dots. Anybody can get into them. People are now putting them on their carry gun. So the age of the dot isn't going anywhere. It's only going to become more prolific, not less. So I'm not saying doing away with irons either. That's not what I'm saying. But maybe it's time to maybe do an irons nationals, since you're not going to do a single nationals. Maybe do an optic nationals and an irons nationals, and do it that way. I mean, I can see a problem where you can't fill up an optics national. I mean, an irons nationals. I mean, what was it? 2 years ago? Yeah, it was 2 years ago in 2020. I say 2 years ago now. In 2024, remember, there were like, I forget how many vacancies there were at factory gun nationals. Because remember now, CO Nats was its own nationals in 2024. So that was a standalone nationals. Filled it up with everybody shooting carry optics. Maybe that's what you do. Maybe you have a carry optics / limited optics nationals, and then a factory gun and a race gun. I don't know. Or maybe just another one that has everything else in it, because everything else would equal. Well, no, they wouldn't. It'd be about 35%. Anyway, my point is, in 2024, they filled up carry optics nationals, and there was still like 100 or 200 people on the wait list. And then they had vacancies in the factory gun nationals. So they opened it up for limited optics, and boom, within minutes it was filled, and then had a waiting list. And then people switched out of divisions they were shooting into carry limited optics, as I understand it. If I'm wrong, please correct me in the comments, because I don't mind being corrected, and I'd like to be accurate, and I would like to know for myself. But I'm pretty sure there was a wait list after that, and that people switched, they jumped divisions into limited optics after having signed up. So you tell me in the comments, are they dead? Are they not?